Dear learners, hope all of you are fine and ready for today's class. Here we are going to read from your textbook, and our today's topic is Lesson 2 of Unit 8. The title of the lesson is The First Newspaper. Dear learners, I hope that you can remember our first lesson, and it was about what is news. Here we learned about the type of news and why they are included in a newspaper. And beside this, we learned some keywords and also did some activity, and I also told you to complete the activity related to the text. I hope you have finished already. Now let's turn to Unit 2, where you will learn about the story of the first newspaper in different places in different time in the world. Let's start with the very beginning activity. Part A, work in pairs. Discuss the following questions. Dear learners, I want to remind you before starting this activity to ask and answer the question, if possible, with somebody, and if not possible, to try yourself. Here are some questions which are very much related with your personal choice, personal opinion. So I want you try to solve the question. And here you were also given a paragraph that will bear your habit of reading newspaper. That will bear your bear information about your habit of reading newspaper. So I want you go through the activity, and if you do this, it will also help to improve your writing skill and speaking skill. And in lesson 2, again there are some questions that are made for doing pair work, but as it's not possible in online class, I want you again to go through the question and try it yourself. But the questions are given just to think about the question, and which are very much related to our text. Do you read newspaper? What newspaper or papers do you read, and how often? What pages interest you the most? What do you know about the history of the newspapers? All are very much related to think about newspapers. Okay, so I expect that you will try it. Now, part B, read the text below silently and first, then tell what the text is about. Though I have introduced you the lesson, actually the text doesn't render the information at the very beginning, but I can easily understand that you also already guessed about the topic, because our lesson title tells about it, the first newspaper. Okay. At the beginning, you see a picture, actor Diana, the first newspaper. So here the picture tells us about the first newspaper and its name. What is its name? Actor Diana. So let's try to learn much more. Humans have a natural curiosity to know the unknown, to see the unseen, and to conquer the unconquered. Every day, so many things are happening around, and human beings are eager to know them all. They not only like to know happenings in their own and other countries, but also what is happening in Antarctica or Mars or Siberia. This curiosity to know and understand situations is not a contemporary phenomenon. It is true the World Wide Web, that means World Wide Web, WWW, has made our life easier, and now we know anything that takes place at the furthest corners of the world with a single click. However, it was not that easy a few hundred years ago. Dear learners, I hope that in this description we have learned how human to quench their curiosity wants to know unknown and wants to see unseen and much more. What is not before eyesight, to learn about it, to know about it, has made our life much more curious, and in that way people also tried to know it and to convey it to others. So in this description we learn a lot about how human tried to convey the news and messages day by day, year after year, decade after decade, century after century. In all these passages you can see, you will read about the story of newspaper. Dear learners, I want you to read this text very attentively, because in each and every line there are informations and all are very much important to learn about the story of newspaper. After reading the text, you will learn that newses were first introduced before the birth of Christ, and now in the 21st century there is a change in the form and presentation of newspapers. In the 21st century, there is a change in the form and presentation of newspapers. They are no more confined to tabloid and broadsheet sizes. Nearly all the world's major newspapers have begun publishing online editions of their newspapers, and although some newspapers charge their readers for access. Dear learners, newspaper, you can easily understand by this compound word that the papers that bear news. But now these newspapers are also publishing online editions of their newspapers, and in that way in this 21st century people can get news through online, and they don't have to depend only on tablet or broadsheet sizes. Many have made their web editions free, yet having a printed newspaper is still an obsession for many people in the world. But though it is made available for people in web edition, but still people cherish to have newspaper as a printed newspaper in the world. Dear learners, I want to go through the text again. I want to remind you that in the text you will get detail about the how newspaper is introduced at first and how it has changed year after year, century after century, its type and its way of publication. Now we will take part in an activity part C. Read the text above again and fill in the flowchart with relevant information. So you see that there are some boxes and you can say it a flowchart. Here times are given according to sequence: before the birth of Christ, after that 16th century, then 17th century, then 18th century, then 19th century. Though before the birth of Christ and 16th century there are a number of centuries, but there is a continuation after 16, then 17, then 18, then 19. That's why you can say it a flowchart. So this flowchart is relevant with information, and they are to be filled by you, and you have to remember by mentioning the important features taken part in different century, and then you will mention why all these dates are important in the history of newspapers. So let's try. Before the birth of Christ. While reading the text, let me help you. While reading the text, you will find that the first newspaper, Acta Diurna, was published in ancient Rome in 59 BC. So you can write this information. There are much more information, but you can add it at the very beginning. Then 16th century. By reading the text, you can learn that at the beginning of the 16th century, printed news books were published in England, and they were based on stories such as battles, disasters, or public celebration. So you can mention that at the beginning of the 16th century, printed news books were published. So in that way, you can fill the box with in related relevant information to taken part in different dates in different century. Now let's come to 17th century. Here you can write that the 17th century also marks the regular publication of newspaper, and you can also add that you can also add some more information taken part in that century. Now the newspaper that are delivered to your house each day started its journey from the 18th century. So you can write that in 18th century the newspaper delivered at the reader's house. You can write it in this box. And after that 19th century you can write much more information that are related to 19th century, and I want you to find it out from the text. Here there are so many information that took part in different century and related to different century. Just identify the point, identify the incidents, informations, and write it inside the box, and it will make a flowchart that are very much related to newspaper. Dear learners, after doing this activity in part C, I want you to try yourself part D and the rest of the activities in your lesson, and so that it will be very much helpful to improve your writing skill, speaking skill, and also enable you to think properly, to solve the question and to give answer. So that's all for today. I want you to go through the text again and again to learn more about newspaper, and it is very informative, so I want you enjoy it. Thank you. That's all for today. Hope you all will stay safe and stay fine. Thank you.